Hey everyone, this is Tom Hanks and welcome to the season finale of Season 4. Since we have one disqualified car this season and I actually haven't driven it before, I figured I'd go head to head with it with my own car. Let's see how that goes. Now on the straights you would imagine that the Morimoto would be substantially faster, but actually it's my car that's slightly ahead despite being down by 65 horsepower, but the Morimoto will brake later and take more speed through these corners because it has more downforce than my car. So this gives it an early lead here, and of course in between corners it accelerates more quickly because it does have a lot more power than my car, so it will take an early lead and get to this first checkpoint first. However, the Morimoto for some reason doesn't like really tight corners and my car is very fast in the tight bends, so I make up quite a bit of time through that hairpin. Closing the gap somewhat, but the Morimoto will pull ahead on the straight again, and it's going to be faster through this corner as well. So it's looking like my car is quite a ways behind, but we do have some fairly tight corners coming up again right here. And this is where I make up a little bit more ground, especially through the second tighter corner here. I'm just able to take more speed through that corner, and the Morimoto will still make it to the second checkpoint ahead, but I'm not as far behind as you might think based on the stats. And again, through the chicane here, you can see my car is quicker and more nimble, and now the Morimoto will basically just out-accelerate me through the bridge here, and then it's going to brake at about the same time as my car, but carrying a little bit more speed. I have a little bit of brake fade on my car, and now through this final corner the Morimoto is already ahead, and it is going to out-accelerate my car to the line and finish about 1 second ahead of me. Time to see how well that time is going to hold up versus our actual competitors, starting with the Transom Menace and the Armored Cricket. We have a similar situation here as with the previous two cars, where the Transom Menace has better acceleration out of the corners, but the Armored Cricket has lower downforce, so it is faster on the top end. However, the Armored Cricket also has worse brakes than the Transom Menace, and so the Menace closes the gap and takes a slight lead through these sweeping corners. But we do know from past races that the Cricket is actually quicker through the tight bends. So right here there's pretty much nothing in it, and both cars will reach the first checkpoint in pretty much the identical time. The Cricket is quicker through this tight corner here, but it also has worse brakes, so it could have a bigger lead than it does right now. It is only marginally ahead, and the Transom pretty much closes the gap on the straights, and it will take a small lead through here, through this sweeping fast corner down the hill, and the Transom will reach this first corner first, but the Cricket will close the gap by going through this corner more quickly, and both cars are neck and neck once again. So coming up to this chicane, again both reach the checkpoint at pretty much identical time, but the Armor has to brake earlier, but then it does take more speed through these corners, going a bit wide on exit. That may have cost a little bit of time, but now we get on to the final couple of corners. The Transom is in the lead clearly, it can brake later. It takes more speed through this corner, and it will do the same through this corner as well, and with its strong acceleration that should be enough to finish first, and indeed it does by about 0.3 of a second. On to our next pairing, the THRS versus the Scarab Flare STR. The Scarab is the fastest car on the straights out of all cars that we still have in the competition, so it will take a lead in this first little part after crossing the line. But both cars have really good brakes, and in fact I think the THRS has better brakes, so it can brake later and make up most of the gap before these first couple of corners. The Scarab will out-accelerate it coming out of this left-hander, and so it will take a small lead right here, but the THRS is faster, especially in the slower corners like this one, and so it is going to close most of that gap here, and both cars are neck and neck on the first checkpoint. The THRS will take a small lead coming through this corner here because it's more nimble in the lower speeds, and so things are looking pretty even, but the Scarab will out-accelerate it once again on the straight, and they are neck and neck through here. Not much in it coming down the hill towards the slower portion of the circuit. Very even still, but the THRS is a little bit faster for this slow corner here. And the Scarab will out-accelerate it once again, getting to this checkpoint a little bit faster, but the THRS will make up the gap in this chicane because it is faster in these slower corners. Very even matchup up until this point, but remember there is a fairly long straight here where they are right now, and there is of course the final straight as well towards the finish line, and the Scarab has already established a small lead up until here, and because it will complete this final corner first and it accelerates harder, it will hold on to its lead, and it's going to finish in the 1:55.386, half a second ahead of the THRS. On to our next two cars, the THRS and the ISN Soul. Both of these cars have been phenomenal throughout the season, and they were usually only separated by a couple of tenths, sometimes less than that. The THRS is a little bit faster down the straights, so it has a small advantage early on. But whatever advantage there may have been was even out on the braking, and the ISN's pointy front end is going to allow it to take this left-hander a little bit faster. Pretty much nothing in it early on, but the ISN is a little bit faster for this tight right-hander, and so it'll reach this first checkpoint marginally ahead of the THRS. It is also very quick through this left-hander, but so is the THRS, and the THRS will out-accelerate the ISN up the hill, or at least the acceleration is going to make up whatever small gap there may have been, and both cars reach this fast left-hander pretty much neck and neck. Still nothing in it down the hill. Very tight lines through these tight corners here, and the ISN is a little bit pointier, so it took that slow right-hander a little bit faster, but the THRS is quicker on the straights. Not much in it up until this chicane, but now we have a fast section coming up. Both cars have a good amount of downforce to them, so they can both take this right-hander flat out, up until they need to brake, obviously. Good lines for both cars through these final two corners, but the THRS is a little bit ahead, and because it has more power and is faster on the straights, it'll keep its lead, and it's going to finish in a 1:53.251, over 2 seconds faster than the Scarab. And with that we get to our final pairing, the Century Hadron versus the Mara Asteri. The Century has won every single race thus far, and with the power advantage that it has over the Mara, it is also quicker down the straight here. And we already know from previous races that the Century can brake later than any other car despite going faster than most of them on the straights, and that's why it already has a small advantage over the Mara. However, the Mara has excellent handling, so does the Century, but the Mara might have even better turning, especially in the lower speeds. So coming up to this first checkpoint, the Century is ahead, but the Mara might make up a little bit of time here for this slow corner. And indeed it does, but the Century is still ahead, and it'll maintain its lead going up the hill and through this fast left-hander. The Mara is already falling noticeably behind, while the Century just takes these corners with ease. Yeah, the Mara is a little bit faster for this slow right-hander, but it's not enough to close the gap to the Century. Now we get to the chicane where the Centurion can brake so late. And it accelerates hard out of the chicane as well. Coming up to the bridge and towards the final 2 corners, I brake so late with the Centurion, almost a little bit too late, you might say. But we're still good. The Centurion will still make it around these final 2 corners and accelerate hard to the finish line. And it's going to defeat the Mara, and it's going to win with a 152.792. Congratulations to Teacup for the clean sweep and the season victory.